All right, hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Aristotle and virtue ethics, his golden mean. Unlike consequentialism or deontological ethics, virtue ethics is more concerned about character. And that's true with Aristotle as well. He's very concerned about character. But in order to understand what characteristics we should have, Aristotle thinks that we first need to understand what end goals humans should have, or what end goals humans do have. Um, Aristotle kind of classifies our actions in two different ways. He says there's actions that we do for their own sake, there's things that we do for their own sake, and then there's things that we do so that we can do those things for their own sake. You know, like you probably all go to work so that you can live, so that you can do something in your life that you find fulfilling. And if I were to ask you why you do those activities that you find fulfilling, whether it's some kind of sport, whether it's some kind of art, whether it's raising kids or taking care of family or participating in a nonprofit, or just like smoking weed and playing video games, whatever it is that you do, that you work in order to be able to do, those could be activities that we say are done sort of for their own sake. Although, if we think about it, those activities really aren't done for their own sake, at least not according to Aristotle. He thinks if you ask any person, what is the chief goal? What is the really primary end good that we're all going towards, that we're all oriented towards? He thinks most people would say happiness. Now, of course, we all have different definitions of what happiness is, and he sort of goes through these, right? There's people who believe that living an honorable life is the life of happiness. People who believe that living a life of money, getting a lot of riches and wealth, is the life of happiness. He also identifies the contemplative life. So Aristotle thinks that sort of our chief goal, our chief end as humans, is to get this happiness, is to find this happiness. We are oriented towards achieving this happiness, and this happiness is good for its own sake. It doesn't need any other justification, right? Making money usually needs some kind of justification. We usually say, oh, I make money so that I can, even to say, so that I can be happy, right? Being good at sports, being good at an art, even keeping yourself fit or playing video games or whatever. If we were to really identify why do we do those actions, Aristotle thinks most people would say that we do those things so that we can be happy. But obviously the problem is we could be doing activities that we think make us happy, but really don't make us happy. So this highest happiness for Aristotle, the happiness that is not just about gaining wealth, that is not just about gaining honor, that is not just about pleasure seeking, because he thinks those are all, or even just having a blessed life, being born handsome or wealthy or rich or powerful or whatever. All of these things are fleeting, they can go away. He thinks in order to have true, and he calls it eudaimonia, which is human flourishing, in order to have truly a good human life, you need to have an excellent life. Now that sounds a little bit redundant, like I'm just repeating myself, right? But he means you need to have a life filled with excellent activities. And these excellent activities are going to be directed by, one, our idea of happiness, but two, our idea of virtue, of what it means to be an excellent human. So in other texts, Aristotle identifies sort of four what they call cardinal virtues. First one is prudence, which is like practical wisdom, practical judgment, being able to make good and smart choices that are effective or efficient. And then the next one is temperance. We kind of already briefly talked about that, or self-control. And he focuses this really around food and around being able to control what you put into your body. That was a really important thing for the Greeks. Another one is courage, which we kind of identified as well already. Being able to act bravely. And courage is a great example of the golden mean, so we'll talk about that one a little bit more. in a second. And the last one is justice, or being able to give your enemy what is due to them in the proper way. For him, these are the four leading virtues that should direct the content of our action. And to do these things is to lead an excellent life. And so in this way, his ethic is very practical, but in a lot of ways too, it's hard to follow. It doesn't give you an exact way of doing what it's calling for. If we're looking at deontology or utilitarianism, utilitarianism literally gives you a math equation to kind of figure out your actions. These characteristics are a little bit hazy. We kind of have an idea of what they mean in our mind, but if we were to apply them to a lot of different situations, we wouldn't know exactly where they lead us. But that's a little bit of sort of the point of Aristotelian virtue ethics. Practicing these things is like an art. Achieving human flourishing, eudaimonia, achieving human happiness, is somewhat like an art for Aristotle. Or like a sport. In order to do it well, you have to, one, do it often, you have to practice it a lot, and you have to find a sort of balance. I don't know if any of you have been watching Cobra Kai, but Miyagi-Do, you got to find that balance. Or with the Jedi, you got to find the balance in the Force. It's kind of like that a little bit, actually. If we look at bravery or courage, Aristotle thinks we can have an excess or a deficiency of bravery. If we have a deficiency of bravery, we act like cowards. We do cowardly things. If we have an excess of bravery, then we're foolhardy. We're stupid. We get into situations that are impractical, that kind of flaunt, or fly in the face of like prudence or temperance, potentially. So it's a balancing act. We got to find that right sort of middle ground. And that middle ground is found, again, by practicing. Just in the same way an artist really finds, somebody making a clay sculpture, for example, you don't want to put too much pressure or too little. You want to put just the right. Or if you're making a painting or a drawing, right, you want to do the exact right amount of pressure. You don't want to put too little or too much. It's the same idea with these sort of virtue orientations, we could almost say it. As we do them, we learn the kind of best way to go. We learn how to find that happy medium, that golden mean. This is sort of Aristotle's aesthetical ethics. It's kind of an artful ethic in a way, which makes sense for the Greeks, right? This sort of ethic is about creating yourself. And what are you creating yourself for? Well, you're creating yourself for a happy life. That's really, I guess, the best way to kind of sum up the entirety of Aristotle's virtue ethics, guided by eudaimonia.